Welcome to the Coach's Corner. Coach Clarence is an entrepreneur, financial expert, and passionate about helping people build and market their business. He has a creative flair for thinking outside the box and is always looking for the positive side of life. Now, here's Coach Clarence.
What is going on, everybody? Good, everything. This is Fit Over 40. I'm your host, Coach Clarence. And I have a special guest in the Coach's Corner. This is Dave Albin. And he's got quite the phenomenal story. And I wanted to have him on because he has a story of overcoming some adversity. And I know a lot of you out there are dealing with adversity. And you're dealing with divorce and all the things that happen when you're over 40 or sometimes even before that. But since the show is called Fit Over 40, we're dealing with 40 and above. So, Dave, what I traditionally like to let people do is tell their story, how they got to where they are. So welcome to the show, and thanks for being on.
Yeah, my pleasure, Clarence. Thanks. Well, as my dad used to say, start at the beginning. That's always the best place to start, right?
And real quick, we can't see you anymore. We see your logo. Is that what you want? Which is fine. Or you want people to see your...
No, it's fine.
There you go.
What did I do? Get their hands away from the computer, Dave. Well, 2 months before I was born, my biological father, who had hurt himself somehow in Korea, we believe, as a pilot, and to save his life, they put a plate in his head. Well, it also took his life because he had excruciating pain associated with that plate. And so literally 2 months before I'm born, he turns to my mom and says, "Hey, I'm going to the grocery store." Never heard from him again. So we don't know. I mean, but we pretty much think that he couldn't take the pain anymore and he took his own life. So when I was born, I'm born to a single mom. She's already got 2 boys. She's living in a 1-bedroom apartment with her mother, my grandmother, and another cousin. So there's like 6 of us. And, my mom came from the generation, which I, to this day, call the greatest generation of all time. That generation is the one that, the men went to. The father that raised me was in Europe fighting the Nazis. My best friend's dad was in Pearl Harbor fighting the Japanese, right? So that generation, the women stayed home. And what did they do? They did everything. They built Jeeps. They built trucks. My mom was known as Rosie the Riveter. She literally worked for McDonnell Douglas, man. She built airplanes, man. And so women did everything. And without them, we'd have lost the war. So this idea that women have to prove themselves is a bunch of nonsense, if you ask me, man. So the bottom line is my mom was working as a server at the time at the Roosevelt Hotel in Hollywood. And she tried really hard. Bless her heart. She worked her tail off. It's not enough. Can't feed 6 mouths. Just can't do it. So when I was 5 years old, she went to her sister, her oldest sister, and said, "Will you adopt David?" And both Bob and Pat Albin said, "Absolutely." And so they moved me from Hollywood to Long Beach, California, and now I'm living with them. And it was great. My dad, who's now taking care of me, right? He was a military officer, highly decorated in World War II. We had a nice house. We always had things. There was always food on the table. It was a wonderful life. They used to take me camping. We're in Southern Cal, right? So we went everywhere. Lake Arrowhead, Big Bear, Yosemite. I mean, we went all up and down the California coast as well. And it was wonderful. It was really great. And then on the first day of summer in 1964, it's like, what it's like, right? First day of summer, every kid's like, yes, school's out forever. I think Alice Cooper said, right?
Let's go.
Right, let's go. Let's do it. Here we go. Well, I'm up early, right? Eating cereal in the TV room. Mom comes in, goes, "David, come in the kitchen. Your dad and I need to speak with you." Now, what I think's going to happen is they're going to tell us where we're going camping. No. They set me down and Mom looks at me. She's got tears in her eyes. She puts her hand on my hand. And Clarence, she turns to me and she says, "David, we need to tell you something. And what we need to tell you is we're not your parents." Okay, hold on a second. What does that mean? Of course you're my parents. That's like walking outside, seeing the sky's blue and go, hey, yeah, the sky's not blue. Well, it looks pretty blue to me. So that was a very confusing moment in my life. In fact, Mom went on to tell me, she said, you know, your Aunt Dean? Yeah. Well, she's actually your mother. She gave birth to you. And I remember thinking, I don't even like her, right? Because she was always touching me. Interesting. Every time I was around her, she wanted to sit next to me, hold me. You know what I mean? It was never inappropriate, but I was her son. So anytime she got a chance to be around me, she took advantage of it, right? But I didn't know that at the time.
Yeah.
Well, shortly after they told me this, both of Bob and Pat started drinking. And it got ugly real fast. So I went from this perfect childhood to all hell broke loose. And one day they went to the grocery store, and I don't know what this stuff is. I've never seen it before. I have no idea. And when they were hiding it in plain sight, I went over to the cabinet, opened it up, brought it out, set it on the table. It was a half gallon of brandy. Nasty stuff.
Yeah, brandy's rough.
Yeah, it's rough, man. That's rough stuff, right? And unless you mix it with a little eggnog, maybe. And so I took a coffee cup, filled it halfway, boom, downed it. 11 years old. I never had a chance. I truly believe, Clarence, I was an alcoholic right on the spot, because I started thinking and acting out alcoholically. And it just got worse from there. As I progressed, school started to decline. Heck, by the time I was a junior in high school, they pulled me into the principal's office one day and said, Albin, you're out. We're done. And so I'm like, okay, good. I'm glad. I'm out of here. I didn't care. It was interesting because I had an entrepreneurial spirit, thank goodness. In fact, when I was young, back, that 10, 11, 12-year age, Mom grew beautiful flowers in the backyard. She had thousands of flowers in this big, giant garden of hers. Well, she would cut them. In fact, it was really cool. She'd cut them at an angle. And then she knew how to match all the colors, and she'd put a rubber band around them, put them in a bucket, and she'd pour a little bit of 7-Up into the water. Well, hell, my flowers would outlast a florist twice. They last 2 weeks. Number one, that she cut the flower at an angle, gave more surface area to get more water in, and something about that 7-Up. I don't know if it was the sugar, the caramel, whatever it was. So I started selling flowers on a street corner at a young age, learning how to negotiate with adults. I also got a paper route. Well, heck, if you get a paper route, you're an entrepreneur. You're a business owner, right? You're working 7 days a week, right? Anybody had a paper route, they know. You got to go pick up your, right? Yeah. You got to go pick up your papers. You got to fold them. You got to put them in your saddlebags. You got to put them on your bike. You got to go throw them. You got to deliver them 7 days a week. You got to collect the money. You got to turn it into your den mother. I mean, all of that. Again, it's a business.
Absolutely. Yep.
So, paper. Did you have one? Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I had a paper route.
Yeah, I loved it, right? So I'm sure you learned a lot. I sure did. I also lived across from a golf course. And here's the first thing I learned about golfers. They suck. So I'd just go ride my perimeter. I'd ride the perimeter on my Stingray bike. And guess what I found? Little white things called golf balls. Well, they're worth money. And I quickly learned that. In fact, I'd go collect as many as I could. I'd take them home and clean them, wash them up, get all the dirt off them. And then I'd go back to the golf course. I'd go into the trash can, and the boxes they came in, like Titleist, right? They threw them away. Well, I would go collect them. And then I'd go back and I'd put the golf balls in the case. And I'd get all the Titleist and the Max Flies and the Dunlaps and the Wilsons, right? And then I'd go back to the golf course in the parking lot, and I'd sell them back to the golfers. So, right. So I learned early on as a kid, there's money out there. Go get it. Literally. So again, when I got kicked out of high school, I didn't care. I went and got a job that day in the largest grocery store in the state of California, joined the union. And with a year later, I was making like $8.09 an hour in 1972. Went out and bought myself a new Mach 1 Mustang. I mean, I was getting it done. However, along the way, I'm still doing a lot of drugs, and the drugs were getting worse. The alcohol was getting worse. And to fast forward that, 3 marriages later, June 8, 1988, woke up that morning, said, that's it. We're done. I'm out. I can't. I was in such excruciating pain, Clarence, physical pain, emotional pain, right? It's You can't, it's not even describable how miserable you feel. And I said, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm out. So I'm married. Thank goodness I was married to a woman who had 3 kids. They were my stepkids, because if it wasn't for them, I would have put a bullet in my head. No doubt about it. And I'm contemplating doing that. I'm going, you can't do that, man. You put a bullet in your head, you're killing those 3 kids. That's going to fall back on them. Yeah, you're dead. It's over, right? But those kids are going to suffer from that. You got to figure out another way, pal. You can't do that to them. And so the next thing I thought I had was, we'll call Alcoholics Anonymous. Well, you know what's interesting about that? I don't know who AA is. I had no idea. I'd never been to an AA meeting. I don't know anybody in AA. Where did that thought come from? And yet there it was. So I did. I called AA, and I got this wonderful woman on the phone, and I've affectionately nicknamed her over the years Madge. And the reason I nicknamed her Madge is because she talked like this. Right? She probably smoked 2 packs of Pall Mall non-filters a day. Well, she was the gatekeeper, right? It's her job to interview you. And it's her job to decide whether she's going to call somebody in AA to come pick you up. She did. She saved my life. She sent a guy from AA, a guy named Lauren, to come pick me up. Lauren picked me up, took me to an AA meeting, an all men's group in Fairfax, Virginia. And I went to 4 meetings that first day, literally. I went to a 12:30, a 4:30, a 6:30, and an 8:30. And during the meeting, what they did is they gave me a big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and on the front page, they opened it up and they signed it. They put their names in there, and they said, before you take that first drink, call one of us. Put their first name and their phone number. They handed that to me when I left. Well, the next morning, my phone rings at 8 o'clock in the morning, and it's John from AA. And he's like, hey, Dave, good morning. How you feeling this morning? And I'm like, how do you think I'm feeling? I want to kill somebody, dude. And I might start with you, but for calling me at 8 o'clock in the morning. And John's a really cool guy. He's like, yeah, I hear you. Listen, man, I know where you live. You told me last night you live right around the corner from me. Let me come pick you up. I'll take you to breakfast, and I'll take you to another AA meeting. And that was it, Clarence. There's a stranger. I'm threatening him, and he comes and picks me up and takes me to an AA meeting. And that's AA for you. That's how it works. Unconditional love, man. And so there he was. And so 2 days turned into a week. I did everything they told me to do, including getting a sponsor, 90 meetings in 90 days, read the big book, immerse yourself. And they even got me to start praying. I didn't believe in God. And he goes, we don't care. Pray anyway. Okay, I'll do what you want, man. I wanted what they had. So I was willing to do whatever these men told me to do.
Yeah.
It turned into a week, turned into a month. In a month, I got a little medallion, and it said 1 month, continuous sobriety. And then they gave me one for 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and 1 year. And of course, this last June 8th this year, I picked up a chip for 35 years. Now, here's what happened along the way. Because I had insomnia and I was up late at night all the time, in 88, I'm up late one night, 3 o'clock in the morning, and guess who's on the television? A young Tony Robbins, Mr. Enthusiasm, if you will, selling his program. He's selling a program called Personal Power. It's a 30-day program. In fact, to date this, it came on little white things called cassette tapes.
Yeah. Yes, I'm familiar.
Yeah. So I did. I bought the program. They sent it to me. I plugged it in. I started doing what the man taught me to do, and it worked. And so from there, one of my buddies in AA was like watching me. He's like, dude, what's going on with you, man? You've lost weight. You're working out. You got a new job. You're taking care of the marriage that you're in. He said, why you seem all motivated and enthusiastic? I go, well, I've been listening to this guy named Tony Robbins. And he goes, I know who Tony Robbins is. I bought his book, but I never read it. I said, well, you might want to think about that. How often does that show up in your life, right?
Right.
And so anyway, I ended up loaning the program. I said, hey, if you promise me you'll watch it, and go through it, I'll loan it to you. And he did. And he went through it. Well, 7 years later, right? This was all going down in 88 and 89. In 95, my phone rings. Guess who it is? It's Dan. Hey, man. Hey, did you know that Tony Robbins is coming to town live? And I'm like, no, I had no idea. And he goes, dude, come on. You got me into this. You got to go with me. I was like, all right, well, what's the date? So we worked it all out. And I go, yeah, I can go. And he goes, great. I'll call you back. Poof, he was gone. He calls me an hour later and he goes, dude, done. We pick up the tickets at will call. Here's what they told us to do. Number one, drink a lot of water. You need to hydrate. Number two, bring snacks. And the reason for that is you're going to spend a lot of time in the room. And I laugh because anybody that's been to a Tony Robbins seminar knows you're going to spend a lot of time in the room.
Yes.
Right. And then he said, bring a good attitude and be ready to play full out. And I said, Dan, how much was the ticket? He said, $695. I'm like, what? $700? Could you have warned the guy? He goes, don't worry, man. You can pay me back. And I go, it's not that. It's like, $700 in 1995. What is that worth today? 3.3 million. I mean, I don't know. Right. Buy Bitcoin with it, for crying out loud. So anyway, bottom line is the big day comes. Oh, by the way, I left out one little part. As he's getting ready to get off the phone, he goes, "Oh, wait, hey man, I got to tell you something. I need to let you know we're going to be doing a firewalk." And I'm thinking, and I'm like, "Oh hell no, you're out of your mind. What are you talking?" Now I'm not saying anything. This is just going on in my head, the dialogue, right, the chatter. I'm like, no, ain't going to happen. I'll tell you what I will do. I'll go. But I'm going to go, I'll go hide in the back or something, and I'll watch these other idiots burn their feet off. I'm not going to do that. And what's kind of funny, though, is I'd never heard the term firewalk. Where'd that come from? I don't know what that means. So anyway, you get to the event, right? It's 2:00 in the afternoon. Tony takes the stage at 2:00. Next thing I know, it's after midnight. I've been in a room with Tony Robbins with 3,500 other people for 10 hours. Right? Remember, bring snacks. Yeah, if you don't, you're going to starve to death. So the next thing you know, Tony goes, take your shoes off. And I'm like, oh, no. I see where you're going with that. You're not tricking me, pal. I'm not taking my shoes off. Well, the challenge I've got, guess what's happening around me? 3,500 people, and guess what they're doing? They're taking their shoes off. So now what am I going to do? What? Go out into this big parking lot with my shoes on, with everybody looking at me and pointing at me? Nah, can't have that. So I'm like, all right, chill out. Just take your shoes off, go out there and go hide in the back somewhere. No one is going to know. Well, other than me, all right? So, well, it gets worse because as he's got you going out there, he gets everybody to start clapping and chanting. 3,500 people now are walking out there going, yes, yes, yes. And I'm going, no, ain't going to happen. It gets worse. When you physically get out into this big giant parking lot where the firewalk's going to be, he's got African drummers, right? So now it's dun, 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 dun. Yes, yes. And, what a dog and pony show. Well, when I get out there finally, again, I'm just going to go hide in the back. Well, the event starts. So now you got drums going, you got people chanting, they're clapping, and people that are walking, when they get across the fire lane, they're in the celebration and they start screaming and yelling because they're celebrating. Well, again, I'm having none of it. Well, Tony Robbins knows, if you do a little research, firewalking is probably the most life-changing experience on earth, by far. It's been around for 1,000 years. It's been used by cultures all around the world. The Tahitians, the Hawaiians, the Polynesians, the Indo-Europeans, the Spaniards, the people of Portugal, the Native American Indians. It's been around a long, long time. And he knows how life-changing it is. So he also knows that there's people like me that are going to hide out in the back. And he doesn't want us to miss out because he knows it's so life-changing. The paradigm shift happens when you walk. So what's he do? He trains people to come find you. Literally. So I'm hiding out in the back thinking I got it all figured out. Not so much. Next thing I know, here comes this guy, man. And he looks at me and I make eye contact, and now he won't take his eyes off me. And I know darn good and well that Robbins trained him. Once you make eye contact, don't take your eyes off him. Yeah. Now he's coming at me. He probably gets, I don't know, maybe 20 feet, 15 feet from me. And he's kind of looking at me funny, like there's something wrong with me, right? And he's like, hey, man, are you okay? And when we're not okay, what do we do? What do we say? We lie.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm good. Nothing to see here. Move along, pal. Well, all of a sudden, this guy says, well, hey, man, are you going to walk tonight? And I'm like, absolutely not. It's almost like, what the hell you think I'm doing hiding in the back, right? and so I'm like, absolutely not. And he goes, hey, man, that's cool. He said, no problem. We don't want you to do anything you don't want to do. And I went, okay, I like this guy. He's going to get me out of here. Not so much. And you know what's interesting, Clarence? Without this guy right here, I don't know who it is. And to this day, I don't know. But this man, this stranger, asked me one question, and he changed my life forever. And he put me in a position to be able to change thousands of people's lives with the firewalk experience. And the question he asked me was, well, wouldn't you at least like to watch? And I thought, well, yeah, sure, let's do that. Let's go watch these people burn their feet off. And he said, hey, man, well, listen, you can't see anything from back here. I'm 100 yards away. I got 3,500 people standing in front of me. I can't see anything. What I can see is a big fire over here, right? And so what they do is they start that fire early in the day. And there's a pit, and it's 35 feet wide, maybe 70 feet long. And they burn, and they just keep adding hardwood to it all day. Well, at the end, after 10 hours, it renders. And you have this big, giant pile of coals. It's a blue flame. It's gorgeous. Well, what they do logistically, they load those coals in a wheelbarrow, and then they bring a wheelbarrow in between two lanes of sod, of grass, right? It's about 3 feet wide, 18 feet long. They just take a flathead shovel, and they sprinkle those coals on top of that grass, and that's what you walk on. It's called a fire lane. Well, again, I'm in the back, so the guy turns to me, and he said, well, look, just get in line, and eventually you'll get up there and you'll be able to see it, right? Okay. He's telling the truth because I can't see anything. I can hear it. People are screaming, they're yelling, they're celebrating, the drums are going, people are clapping, they're chanting, but I got 3,500 people standing in front of me. I can't physically see anything. So I get in line, kind of walking along, pretty intense, man. This is the dog and pony show, man. I've never felt anything like this other than a Tony Robbins seminar with the intensity. And all of a sudden, this guy comes up to me and he whispers in my ear. And he said, he knows when you're ready. When he says go, you go. And then, pew, this guy just disappeared into the night. And I'm like, what was that? What was that about? That was just bizarre. Well, I'm cruising along, Clarence, right? Kind of walking along, and I can't see in front of me. Got 1,000 people in front of me. But all of a sudden, I get to a point, and I can see at an angle. And guess what, brother, they're doing it. They are firewalking. Every race, every creed, every color, every size, they are walking on fire. And so now I'm trying to process because I've never seen anything like this in my life. And I'm like, you know, this doesn't make any sense. We're mammals. We're taught to run from fire. This makes no sense whatsoever. And so now I'm mesmerized, right? I can't take my eyes off it. It's like a car accident, right? You're not supposed to stare at it, but we do. Same thing. I'm just mesmerized. Well, all of a sudden, next thing I know, boom, guess where I am? I'm at the front of the line. And I'm looking down, and those coals they laid on that grass are, you know, they're bright red. There's no doubt that they're hot. And the wheelbarrow's right there. You can feel the heat coming off. And now, Clarence, I'm staring into the abyss, and I'm scared out of my mind. I'm pretty sure my heart's going to jump out of my chest any second. And there's a trainer standing there. And all of a sudden, the trainer goes, eyes up. Oh, yeah, that's right. Right? I'm in a room with Tony Robbins for 10 hours. Guess what he teaches you to do? Keep your eyes up. Yeah. Right? Don't stare at what you fear. Keep your eyes up. Look to the celebration end. That's where the reward is. That's where the paradigm shift is. And all of a sudden, my eyes are up, and the trainer goes, squeeze your fist and say yes. And I went, yes. And he went, stronger. And I went, yes. And he could tell I was leaving a lot on the table. I wasn't in a peak state. So he screamed at me. You know, it's like, stronger. And I threw my hands in the air and I screamed at the top of my lungs, yes. And he goes, go, go, go. Pooh. I took off. Well, here's the first thing I learned about firewalking. When you take the first step, oh, you're guaranteed to take the second, third, fourth, and fifth, man. You're not going to stop on the fire lane, right? Well, he positions two guys at the end, and they lock arms and they catch you. And they're like, stop, wipe your feet and celebrate. And I'm wiping my feet and I'm starting to celebrate. And all of a sudden I realize I burnt myself really, really bad. And so I look at my foot and I look at it. It's dirty, but there's no burns. Oh, it's my other foot. Yeah. Same thing. It's dirty, but there's no burns. So now I just walked across coals that were 1,000 degrees. I didn't burn myself, and I don't have a clue how I did it, right? You know what I mean? I think most people have done something really intense, but you don't know how you did it, but you take credit for it, right? It's like, that's right. That was me. That's this guy. I did that. Right. So now I'm standing in the celebration lane with thousands of people, and they're jumping up and down and they're screaming. I mean, Clarence, it's exhilarating. At that moment in your life, all of us felt like we could do anything. It's like, where's the bus? Take us to Mount Everest. Let's go. Right. Well, here's the most interesting part about my entire firewalking career, which was the next day. This Tony Robbins event's a 4-day, right? This was day one, the night of. Now it's day two. So now 3,500 people are standing in the foyer of the venue getting ready to go into the main room. And I've never seen or witnessed anything like it in my life. 3,500 strangers were getting along like we were all brothers and sisters. It was beautiful. People are laughing and they're crying and they're hugging. They're connecting humanistically, unlike anything I'd ever seen or witnessed. And so I'm like, so what happened? Did we drink the Kool-Aid? Did the firewalk connect us at this level this morning? Because, we leveled up with our self-confidence, our self-belief, and our self-worth. Absolutely. That's why Robbins uses it. He knows. Well, later in the event, I met one of Tony's trainers, a guy by the name of Ted Macy. Sweet dude, man. Great guy. And his wife, Mary, both trainers for Tony. And so we're just having a conversation. And I commented, I said, man, this must be really awesome that you get to come and be in this environment and around all this positivity and this encouragement. He goes, oh yeah, I get to do this 12, 15 times a year. Wow. And he goes, as a matter of fact, he said, you see all those people standing over there with the black shirts with the pink writing on the back? Yeah. He goes, they're volunteers, man. They're people just like you, came to the firewalk and said, I want to be involved. So they become volunteers and they came back. He said, so when you go home, call Robbins Research, tell them you want a volunteer crew application, and maybe you'll get lucky. And I did exactly that. They sent me the application, filled it out, sent it back. It was like 9 weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. It said, Dave Albin, congratulations. You've been selected to crew with the Anthony Robbins companies at Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Well, here we go. So there, my foot's in the door, right? Well, when you crew, you've got to pay your own way. Well, my wife, so I crewed, I think 5 or 6 times. And it's costing you, $1,500, $2,000 every time you do this, right? Because you got to pay your airfare, you got to pay your hotel, got to pay all your expenses. And my wife is like, you know what? I've had enough of this. Who the hell is this Tony Robbins guy? You're spending a lot of money. Well, it's interesting. Shortly after that, they hired me as a subcontractor, right? Because I had a security background, had a military background. They put me on the security team to help take care of Tony's celebrities because I lived on a farm and knew how to use tools and a log splitter and this kinds of thing. They put me on the fire team as well as the assistant captain. And so now they're paying my way. Well, they did a smart thing. They gave me a ticket. They gave me a free ticket. I brought my wife to the next one. And so after she graduated, we're walking on the beach that evening, and she looked at me and she goes, okay, I get it. I drank the Kool-Aid. I see who this Tony Robbins guy is. If you want to run with this guy, go. Yeah. So she opened the door. Awesome. And from that, right, that was all going down in the 90s. And then in 2003, Tony offered me the captain's position. And that just meant that I was in charge of all of his firewalks globally. He even paid to have my kids and my family go on the road with us. So there they are, in 2003, my daughter's 6, my son's 9, and they're on the road because I homeschooled them. So they're on their first event was Sydney, Australia. So imagine taking your family on the road with Tony Robbins to travel the world. It was spectacular. That was in 2003. 2005, we go to London and we set the world record. That's where we firewalked 12,000. That's right, 12,500 people at the Excel Center out in the Docklands in London. And then, so I just went along. Everything's groovy. Everything's wonderful. Having a great time traveling the world with Tony Robbins. And then in 2014, I'm driving down the road and my cell phone rings. And it's a company called Google. And they're like, hey, are you the Dave Albin that does the firewalks for Tony Robbins? Yeah. What can I do for you? Well, if you're not under any contractual obligation or non-compete, we'd like to talk to you about hiring you. Really? Right? How often do you think people are driving down the road and Google call them to hire you? Right? Pretty
Not
phenomenal.
often.
Yeah, not often. That's right. It doesn't happen too often. Well, it was interesting. They wanted to do the firewalk. They had 148 executives that had gone through a really intense curriculum, and they wanted to finish it and anchor it in with a powerful experience. Interesting for all you business owners out there. What does Google know that you don't, right? They know, they understand what doesn't challenge you doesn't change you. So the bottom line is they wanted to do the firewalk during the day. And I said, nope, can't do it. It's a safety issue. Not going to put anybody at risk. Tell you what we can do, though, if you want to do it, inside of having lunch and the graduation all rolled into one, we could do a glass walk. They said, a glass walk? You mean like walking on broken glass? I'm like, exactly. And they're like, ooh, tell us about that. So we ended up doing a glass walk for them. And I went back the following year and did another one. And when I was there, one of the executives came to me and said, hey, I'm not here to tell you what to do, but you, my friend, are in a position to go out there and kill it in the corporate world. Because corporate America, this is exactly what they need. A paradigm shift, life-changing, fear-based experience that will change their life forever. And so you may want to think about starting your own business. Not telling you what to do. I know you're working for Tony, blah, blah, blah. And so, if Google tells you there's a marketplace for corporate team building, you might want to listen to them.
You might want to listen. So I got a couple questions for you.
Sure, man.
Obviously, when people hear this, do your feet get burnt? Do people get burned up? Like I was,
Nope.
So how does that work? Because you're walking on coal. Sounds like you're walking on some hot coals.
I have to be candid with you. I don't have a clue. I don't know. I don't understand it to this day. I've got my own hallucination. All I know is that when I walked on those coals my first time, I walked across them 1,000 degrees and I didn't burn myself. And I watched thousands of other people do it as well. And now
I have a buddy who did it.
Yeah. Okay. So can you burn your feet? Well, come on. The coals are 1,000 degrees. Sure. But what's gonna happen? You get a little blister on your foot. Okay. So what? The badge of honor is you get to say, I firewalked. I did it. Right. So, but no one's ever been seriously hurt, while I was in the game ever. I've walked 500,000 people. So it's
more about the mindset of doing it, getting over the fear that I am going to burn.
Well, I think it's interesting. I'll give you a great example. People can go see this. Go Google Oprah's Firewalk, 2010 LA Convention Center. So before she firewalks, she's losing her, what? She's literally losing it. She's scared to death. And there's this moment where Tony talks to her and he whispers in her ear. And all of a sudden he says to her, look, Oprah, what's the worst that can happen? Burn your feet off and die? Come on, step through it. Because the reward's on the other side. And she did. And the beautiful thing about it, on film, she walks off from the firewalk. She walks over, the cameras go with her, and she makes the biggest business decision of her life within seconds of firewalking. She started what's called the next chapter. It's on film. You can go watch it for yourself. And you know what, Clarence? That's really common, man. This is one of the most life-changing experiences any human can go through. Now, Tony's using it obviously for a motivational moment, because if he can get you to walk on fire on day one with 3 more days to go, the question is, if I can walk on fire, what else can I do? And that's what sets people up. And so I came along and said, well, you know what? I'm going to take it to another level. So when my clients call me, I always find out what's going on, because basically normally I have 3 types of clients. 1, there's a meltdown in the company and they need to be rescued. Number 2, everything's kind of mediocre. Things aren't bad, but things aren't good. Or the company's kicking butt and they want to level up. So that's normally how they show up to me. So I go to them, what's going on? You got dissension going on? Yeah. People are still fighting over masks and vaccines and political this and political that. And our production went in the trash. All right. Well, to pull it up out of the toilet, give them to me for 3 hours and I'll fix it. So the thing I do is that I bring in the board break with it, right? This is a martial arts move, right? Any dojo in America does the same thing. You go from a white belt to a yellow belt. You got to break a board with your bare hands to graduate to get your belt. So what I've done is I take the board break, and here's what I've done with it. Number one, I have them write something on front of the board they want to move towards. I have them write something on back of the board they need to move away from. And then I have them write anybody's name on the board that they're in conflict with. Meaning that if forgiveness or reconciliation is part of that relationship, it ends tonight. Stop carrying around resentment. It's not the way you go through life. It's going to cloud your thinking. And then to create the rite of passage, this is where it gets really yummy. I have them write anybody's name on that board that they've lost. So now we go out to the firewalk area. They're out there. The fire's burning. They know what's going on. They break the board. Once everybody does that, I circle them back. They firewalk. They throw their board into the fire. And then I do one other thing that's absolutely spectacular. And that is I do what's called the heart hug. And what I do is I get everybody to come in together. Remember, they just broke a board. They just firewalked together. So the dissension goes away. And now I got them. And I put them in what's called the heart hug. And the heart hug gets their hearts to calibrate. So now everybody's heart is beating at the same time. And then after I do that, I basically say goodnight, thank you, and then I give them one of these, right? These are the coals with the company name or whatever on it, right? For the firewalk. So that way they've got an anchor that can sit on their desk or their credenza, and they'll, they'll have it forever as a reminder. So once you do that, the CEO just goes, okay, that was worth every nickel that we spent. Because at that point, you know what? Let's get back to being humans. Who cares? You know what? It's none of my business what Clarence thinks of me. And if Clarence wants to wear a mask or not wear a mask or get a vaccine, live his life on his own life, let him get out of his, AA taught me something. AA said, live and let live. Stay out of it. Right? Stay out of other people's business.
Let people live their own lives.
Yeah.
You don't have to agree with it.
You don't. You don't have to like me either. I don't care. Doesn't matter. I'm going to live my life my way. If I want to wear a mask, I will. If I don't, I won't. So don't use this guilt crap on me that I'm going to kill grandma if I don't do this and I don't do that. Now we've learned, right? We're way on the other side. We knew it was a bunch of nonsense. So, but the point is, dissension will tear a company to pieces. Production goes in the toilet, and guess who has to fix it? The CEO.
Because the CEO has to make things happen. Yeah. Let me ask you about the glass, because that's interesting. I get the coals because that's mindset. But glass, you're putting weight. If you're panicking, that weight's on that glass. How does that experience go?
Physics. First of all, you have to use special glass. You have to use stick glass, meaning we use wine bottles and alcohol bottles. You wouldn't use a light bulb, right? Exactly. You know what I mean? So what happens is that when it's all stacked together and you put your foot down on it, it's like a bed of nails, right? You can lay on a bed of nails. We all know that, right? Similar. And it's scary because, we've all burned ourselves. We've all cut ourselves at some point, right?
Sure.
And so, it's really powerful. And the cool thing about the glass walk is I use it when, firewalking isn't logistically possible. I can still create a really grand slam home run experience. And then what I typically do with the glass walk is I bring in the arrow break. The arrow break is when you put an arrow here in the soft spot of your neck and you put it up against the wall and you step through and break it, which is pretty spooky because it's really the only experience that I put out there that there's an illusion that you could kill yourself, because if that arrow was to pierce your trachea, right? What's going to happen? Well, you're going to have
be a good day.
You're going to have a really bad day, man. Right? So again, it's got to be life-changing. That's the bottom line. And again, it goes back to, we know what doesn't challenge you doesn't change you. You don't become a Navy SEAL by sitting in class, man. You become a Navy SEAL when they drop you in the ocean at 3:00 in the morning off the coast of San Onofre and let you swim with 9 different types of killer sharks, man.
It definitely separates those who are serious and those who are not. And you need that in that type of environment. You need to know who's going to show up.
Absolutely. But when you do it together, then it becomes, collective, right? It's like a near-death experience kind of a thing. that there's several of you involved. I always use the example of Flight 1549, U.S. Air, Miracle on the Hudson, Sully, right? The movie. Those people all went down together. They said, Sully landed it in the Hudson. No, he didn't. He crash landed it in the Hudson. There's a big difference. He didn't have any engines, right? He had hydraulics. He could move it, right? He could do some things. You can navigate it, but, in fact, one of my best friends was on that flight. And I've talked to him about this. And he said, the firewalk is very similar, right? Because it's extraordinary because you're all doing it together. And you never forget it, ever. They'll forget me, Clarence. They won't remember Dave Albin. They won't remember my company. They won't remember any of that. And I don't care. I don't need that. What they'll never forget is the experience. And in fact, I'm now in a position where 100% of my focus is veterans and first responders. They're committing suicide it's incomprehensible to me. The first number I heard was 22. Not true. That's only if they leave a note. It's closer to 40. So now what I'm doing is I'm aligning myself with companies and people that want to help, and they'll let me go do it. Let me take them to the firewalk, the board break, and the hard hug. And then I've created what I call an oath. And so what I do is they're going to stand up and I'm going to tell them, look, I'm going to take you out here into the parking lot. It's a 1,000-year-old ritual. It's a rite of passage, but you have to raise your hand. I'll take you through it, but you have to promise me to do no harm, period, to yourself or anyone else. And if you take that oath, then I'm going to take you out there to that experience. And then Zippo lighter, right? I love these guys, man. I light all my fires with these guys, man. And so Zippo, I went to Zippo and I said, hey guys, would you make a lighter for these veterans? And they said, absolutely. So I went and visited with them in Bradford, Pennsylvania. I sat down with the marketing and the design team, and they took a 1941 replica of the lighter that they used in World War II, and they gave out to all the GIs. And they're going to take that and they're going to etch it. They're going to etch in there, do no harm. Beautiful. So we're going to give those out. We'll have necklaces, and then we're going to create a network so that because, one of the reasons they come back and get disoriented is they lose their purpose.
Right. I've heard that before.
Right?
I heard a lot of guys, they don't have a purpose.
Yeah. Well, guess what? Yep. Well, we're going to change that. They're going to have purpose. They're going to be required to take an oath. They're going to be required to go out and call their fellow veterans and bring them to the table, bring them to the party. And let's see how many we can save. I mean, my thing is if I can save one, okay, I'm in. What's it going to take? So there's companies out there that would love to have their brand out in front of that. And so if they want to get a hold of me and talk, let's do it. I just reached out to the Black Rifle Coffee Company. And
that's very popular here.
Yeah, man. Great company. All vets. These are combat vets too, man. These are guys that have been in the junk. And they're a great company, man. They're funny. If you've ever seen any of their ads, they're hilarious. I'm like, what? I remember seeing someone and I'm laughing, man. I almost choked. I almost spit up my spleen one time. I was laughing so hard. These guys, they're great. So companies like that are out there. Obviously, there's amazing people out there. Gary Sinise, right? Incredible dude. He's devoted his whole life to veterans and first responders. Gary's right. For your listeners who may not know, he's the guy that played Lieutenant Dan in Forrest Gump. And there's other ones out there too. There's, that are really doing a great job. So I want to come into that and, let me spend 3 hours with these amazing souls who gave they gave us all, and let's see if we can save some of these men and women's lives.
Well, thanks for sharing that story. Where can people find you if they want to sign up? And then the next question is there are you going to different cities or is it per company?
Yeah, I don't open it up to the general public. That's way more than I could do. I just had the Dave Albin Firewalk Academy. Once a year, I open it up to those who want to come up to the Appalachian Mountains, spend 5 intense days with me, and I'll show you all of it. All of it. Firewalking, glass walking, arrow break, rebar bending, board break, all of it. How to start your own company, how to, work with fire marshals, how to do it all. In fact, the class just graduated last week. So that's coming up. That's on my website. So back to your question. They can just go to my website. That's where everything is. Firewalkadventures.com. It's all one word. Firewalkadventures.com. The academy's there. Everything's there. And I'm very, very accessible, Clarence.
I love it, man. Well, that's an inspiring story, man. And
thank you.
It's exciting. I guess now I got to do it.
Well, you said you asked. Here's what I do tomorrow. I do private. I've had celebrities and people get a hold of me and, hey, Dave, I don't want to come to, I'd like to just do it privately. Do you offer that? Yeah. You want to come to my cabin in the Appalachian Mountains? You want to pay me through the nose? Yeah, I'll do it. And so they come up and they spend a day and a half with me, and I require them to bring up dinner, and I create the rite of passage. They have to bring an offering, right? Meaning that they have to bring like sage or tobacco or cornmeal, what our ancestors did. That's another thing. The rite of passage, we don't have that in America anymore. We've lost it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And I've got a woman and her girlfriend, I believe, that are coming up here tomorrow. They're probably going to be here about 1 o'clock, and we'll do the firewalk tomorrow night. They cook dinner, and then they go home on Sunday.
Nice, love it.
Yeah, so that's available if somebody wanted to do a private firewalk. Yeah, it's out.
Okay.
There. Yeah,
fascinating. All right, Dave. Well, I appreciate your time and sharing the story. It's incredible.
Thank you very much.
You might be hearing from me, so I can get my feet dirty.
Go on, man. I will rock your world, brother. Where are you, by the way? In the world?
I'm in Arizona now.
You're in Arizona. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I've had people from all over the country come. I just had a guy from Halifax, Canada. He just came. So, they're coming in. So, yeah, I'll take good care of you, man.
That sounds good.
Absolutely.
Sounds good. Well, thanks for sharing this incredible journey, man. You're the best.
Thanks,
and real quick, what was it like working with Tony all those years?
He's a good dude, man. He treated me and my family like gold. No doubt about it. Tony's he's a guy that through his own adversity and his own struggles, wanted to figure out how this thing works, man. And he's very, very driven, like I am, to help and love other human beings and show them, what's possible in life. And because, the bottom line, again, is what doesn't challenge you doesn't change you. And, if I get asked all the time, so what's the one thing you took from Tony, blah, blah, blah. Well, the one thing would be is that our life is a story. And we create our own story. Every single thing that happens to us, whether it's good or bad, we assign a meaning to it, and then we tell the story behind it. So you can either tell a good story, a bad story, or you can embellish. And I think Viktor Frankl gave us the greatest gift any of us can get in his book, Man's Search for Meaning. Right? If you don't know about the book, I highly encourage it. This is a man that was in Auschwitz, and they took everything from him. Everything. In fact, they assassinated his family. And so there you are. You're standing in the yard. You don't know if you're going to the chamber every single day. Are you going to die in an hour and next day, whatever it is? You're living with that stress every day. You're naked. You're freezing cold. They don't feed you. But Viktor figured out there's one thing you can't take from me. And that's my attitude. That's right. I have to relinquish it. I have to let it go. And I'm not doing it. And what did he do? We talked about it earlier, right? With the vets, we got to get them back to purpose. Same thing with Viktor. He said, someone has to tell this story, and that's me. And he did.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
Okay, Dave. Well, again, appreciate your time, and keep doing what you're doing, man. It's amazing.
Thanks, bro. Thanks for having me on your show. Appreciate it. Take care. Ciao.